What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Christian Witch Podcast. I'm your host, Chosen, also known as at Christian Witch HTX over on all the social medias. You can find all the information about me over on ChristianWitchHTX.com. If you're just joining us, hi, welcome. I'm Chosen. I'm a Christian Witch and a certified professional psychic medium. I do readings and healing full time, and I teach others. I have an academy called the Elysium Academy of Mystical Arts, where I train people in witchcraft, healing, and psychic development. So if you are interested in any of that, please check out the links I just mentioned below, or yeah, they will be below, but what I meant to say was what I mentioned before. Anyways, not the point. So ChristianWitchHTX.com, and I am joined with our lovely co-host Lux, and I'm going to allow her to introduce herself, and yeah, go for it.
Hey guys, it's Lux with Intuitive Therapy by Lux. You can find me on Facebook at Lux Intuitive Therapy and on Instagram. You can also visit my website, luxintuitivetherapy.com, to view my full list of services, and I have lots of information on there about me and everything. But I'm a professional psychic medium as well. I do intuitive tarot.
Interpretive dance.
Interpretive dance.
Just kidding.
But I'm also an occultist and a magician, so...
Yeah, so there you go. That's how to find us. Go follow us. Go say hi. We love interacting with you guys. I'm just going to throw this out here. I know I say it every podcast, but we love getting messages from you guys, getting questions or topic ideas. So by all means, feel free to message us and reach out. We absolutely will respond. So what are we talking about today? Demons, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I thought
I know.
we should talk about this.
Tell us briefly why you thought we should talk about this.
Oh, so I'm a part of a lot of Facebook groups, and I've just been seeing it come up recently as something that apparently is a very hot topic, and a lot of people have a lot of different opinions on it and things like that. And then I saw a video on TikTok, like as soon as I woke up this morning, and was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then of course I've seen just lots of videos on it, and I don't know. I thought I was getting ahead.
You do know. You don't know how to not be rude about it.
Yeah,
No, I'm just kidding.
I thought I was getting ahead of the game by suggesting this as a topic, because I was like, oh, we should talk about this as like the viewers go out into the occult spaces and see the variety of opinions, and coming from a Christian background, like how are they going to reconcile a lot of these differences of opinion, because it is not the opinion of the majority of occultists and,
Non-Christian occultists.
and, it's just not the opinion of most people in the occult spaces, actually, that demons are evil or malefic or bad at all. And I think that this has to do a lot with what I call the demonology propaganda. And yeah, so
And
we wanted to
she
talk
was
about
saying
it.
she thought she was getting ahead of the game because I actually had seen a video just recently by other people who are practitioners from a Christian background that are also promoting the ideas of working with demons and like them not being what you think they are. Just because it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck doesn't mean it's a duck. It's a duck. And so yeah, anyways, we're talking about it today. And yeah, so where should we start? I don't even know where to begin. Do you have a jumping point?
I'm just going to start with a disclaimer.
Go for it.
Okay, so I have never done any type of demon work at all. I do not work with demons. I haven't summoned one. I haven't petitioned one. I have not worked with one. So people who have worked and conjured demons and used them to get what they want, whatever that may be, they use them in their magical practice, they are going to give you a different understanding of what this is. Now, whether or not you think it's my place to speak on it because I haven't worked on it, I'll leave that up for you to decide. But I can tell you what my opinion is and why I don't feel that it's necessary to work with them. And I can also give you some insight into the people who do work with them, why you would work with them. But at the end of the day, just to make this whole podcast short before we elaborate any further, I don't recommend working with them, and I think that there's other ways to get what you want magically than to conjure a demon.
Yeah, and for, just jumping onto that, like, as a disclaimer, I have interacted with demons. I'm trained in deliverance ministry. I have banished, exorcised, fought demons. I have seen incredibly grotesque things. And just to let you guys know that that stuff is very real. It's not just Hollywood. And I have studied with a lot of mentors over the last decade and a half, and even non-Christian mentors, non-believer mentors who will say the same exact things. So these people this is my personal opinion, these people who are promoting this incorrect, harmful ideology that demons are living creatures and we shouldn't harm them or be afraid of them and that they're just doing their job.
They're not actually evil. That's a human perception.
Yeah, they're incorrect. That is incorrect and that is a lie and they've been deceived. So just be warned that demons are not okay. Now, that being said,
I want to clarify something right quick, because that was a good point that you brought up.
okay.
I have come into contact with demons.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't used them in my practice.
Yeah.
So it's not that I haven't ever experienced one, because Lord knows I have. But I have not conjured one forth, like, for the purposes of magical practice is what I meant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and because you know better.
Yeah, because I have come into
Mhm.
contact with them before.
Yeah.
So
And just so we're all clear, the reason I gave all that information is so you know I'm not just saying this because I come from a Christian background. This isn't because the church told me demons were bad. This is boots on the ground experience
Right.
as well, and also years of mystical, supernatural, metaphysical, occult, philosophical training and education. I know I may not always come off as the smartest or sharpest tool in the shed, but I promise you I've done the work. And this is not something you want to entertain or get caught up in. And yeah, so I guess the first thing that we should talk about is that demons are not just doing their job.
Mm.
Like they're not healing. They're not wholeness. They're not moving you towards goodness. They are always going to be bad. We were talking about this earlier when we were talking about the topic. They're always going to be doing something that is harming you. And even if like the worst case scenario you decided to work with them, it would be like hiring a serial killer to go kill your enemy or hiring a thug to go and, steal the gem you want or whatever it might be. You're still working with incorrect, harmful energy. And remember, the energy that you feed is the energy you get more of. And the energy you entertain is the energy you welcome.
Mm.
And the things you do and the magic you send out will return to you. So it's really important that you see that for what it is.
Yeah.
So anyways, what are your thoughts?
I have a bit more of a relaxed perspective on it, but really not that much. I was telling Chosen earlier when we were having lunch that the way that I saw it was they are parts of creation in that they do serve a specific role. And I was also saying that, just because something serves a specific role doesn't mean that it's objective, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, like rats and roaches serve a very specific role, but we don't want them in our home. And it would be an objective fact that if you walked into somebody's house that was infested with rats and roaches, that would be unsanitary, it would be unsafe, and in the worst case scenario, it could lead to death. That's the way I view demons. Is that they're not something that I want to entertain. They're not something I want to be around. And in the worst case scenario, they could infect me with diseases or whatnot. And I'm, that's not what I'm into. So that's not what I'm going to entertain, kind of like what you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I'll say is, because it's just coming up on my mind, is that a lot of people that I've seen, the argument here is that essentially they're misunderstood, like nature spirits, or misunderstood, just misunderstood spirits in general, and that they essentially, these spirits existed before Christianity, but Christianity has since demonized them. And essentially they're saying that demons didn't come around until Christianity started calling spirits demons and started, essentially classifying spirits as bad. And that's why we have demons. So they're, misunderstood, and they've been wrongly accused and wrongly categorized by Christians. And that is just historically not true. Um, Malevolent spirits, spirits of sickness, spirits of poverty, spirits of bad luck,
Mm-hmm.
spirits that are objectively bad. Um, because bad things do happen to us. So
Yep.
it would go for reason to show that, there would be a spirit of bad behind that. So
Mm-hmm.
what I'm trying to say is that evil, malefic, bad, whatever you want to, chaotic, destructive, whatever word you want to use. If you don't like the word evil and it's too harsh, then something else, right? I use the word malefic more times than not. These spirits do exist. And in our
Correct.
modern day lexicon, we do say those are demons.
Yeah, and that's one of the other arguments we're talking about is that people think that just because you can trace the word demon back to daemon in
Right.
the Latin,
Mm.
that it just means spirit and that everything was a spirit. But we were talking about earlier, like it matters in the grammar of the ancient language as well, and where the word was placed and the emphasis and what they were saying about the spirit. Like there's
Right. There's
there's
a
there's
context.
ways to distinguish. Yes, it's reader relevance, it's context, it's
Yeah.
hermeneutics, like
Yeah,
yeah.
if you look at, that's a good point you're bringing up. If you look at the ancient well, not really ancient, but if you look at the grimoires in which the Greek word daemon was used, very often there was a distinguisher where daemon does mean spirit. It does. That's what it means. And the word
Correct.
demon does come from that word. But here's the thing. When they were using it in the grimoires, when they would say daemon, there would often be a follow-up, whether good, bad, or evil.
To
Okay, to
distinguish.
distinguish. So it would literally be like evil daemon, good spirit, they would say, good daemon, evil daemon, or even flat out just devils.
Yes.
So the word devils was actually kind of more of a precursor to the word demon, how we know the word demon today.
Yeah.
Devils was always to distinguish a malefic spirit, a spirit that was not going to it wasn't going to be for your highest good. It wasn't going to work for your best interest, or it would be difficult to work with. It would be difficult to get them to do what they wanted to do because they have their own agendas that are probably not aligned with what you want for your life.
Yeah, I think earlier you mentioned it would be like your highest bad.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
literally like if an angel is for your highest good, a demon would literally be for your highest bad.
yeah,
Like,
and you can also see the similar, like just looking at the ancient languages, like in scripture. The word Elohim is a classification of a type of being. It means spirit being, okay? We translate it as God, but it means spirit being. So God is an Elohim because he's a spirit being, but he is El Elohim, the creator, the God of gods, the spirit being of spirit beings, so to speak. And coming from a scriptural background, demons are technically the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, which are the offspring of the fallen angels with mankind. And now, in other places, there are other spirits who are incorrect, harmful, and have been fallen beings as well that are classified and called demonic.
hmm.
But if we're being like super technical like that in scripture, that's where they're first referenced. Um, so it's really important that you understand that just because they called everything spirits doesn't mean that everything is good or bad. You have to look at the distinguishing qualifiers. You have to do more research, you guys. And just like with anything, people can take something, twist it, and make it back their point of view.
Yeah.
And that's harmful and it's genuine ignorance, honestly. And sometimes it's just straight up manipulation. They know they're wrong, they just don't want to be wrong.
Yeah. I mean, to say that just because the word demon can be traced to the word daemon and the word daemon was a neutral term, so that must mean that like demons were literally the word daemon and those spirits that they were referring to were somehow demonized by
Hmm.
Christianity. That's kind of like the intellectual, like, I guess, line of thinking. That's the logical train that people are following, but it's just that doesn't track because
Yeah.
if you look at it again, there were these qualifiers of good and bad from the get-go. There was always devils, there always has been evil or malefic spirits, again, of sickness, poverty, and things like that. And what else we were bringing up earlier is that I feel like there's this huge tendency, and it's in modern astrology as well, where we don't want to paint anything as good or bad. And we want to try to like say, oh, it's only good or bad because we have a human perspective of it.
Oh yeah, it's how you're
Right?
viewing it.
It's
It's
how
only
you're
bad
viewing
because
it.
you're seeing the situation as
Right.
bad.
Exactly. Like it's just your perspective, and good and bad doesn't exist in the spirit world, and like all these things. Now, like, here's my argument to that, right? There are things that work out for our highest good in the end, and I believe that everything works out for our highest
Yeah.
good. However, there are things that happen where maybe they'll turn out good. There's things that happen in the now that are objectively bad.
Yeah, so
Cancer's bad. Losing a parent is bad.
exactly.
Breaking your leg is bad. Like, losing your house is bad. Having a house fire is bad. Literally getting robbed is bad.
It is bad, absolutely.
Losing your job, it's bad. Like, there are things like losing a sibling, like being put up for adoption. Like, I mean, I don't want to offend anyone with that, but like,
There are things,
there are
well, that's a
things in
less
life.
than ideal situation
It's
for people, but they
yeah,
do it because sometimes it's out of love,
it's hurtful.
but the situation they're in can be bad
It
and
can
force them to
be.
do that, you know?
Yeah,
So yeah, and exactly like what you're saying is, you know, in scripture it says that God makes all things work together for our good.
right,
Not that all things are good and we just have to
right.
see it that way.
Yes,
So it's not, we're not saying that things can't turn out wonderful and we can't have hope in those moments.
right.
We're saying we also just can't be ignorant and ignore what's going on. We have to process what's going on in the moment, or else that's
Yeah,
going to start manifesting as illness later.
yeah,
We have to process that energy out. When we shove down things instead of experiencing them and processing them out healthily, they can begin to manifest in many ways. You know, I don't prescribe or diagnose ever. I have a lot of followers who say I need to put that on a shirt already because I say it so much, but
hmm
it really can manifest as behavioral, mental health, and physical stuff. There's all kinds of things that could happen. So by all means, but you can have hope. But feel the moment and
yeah.
understand that bad things do happen.
They
This is,
do happen.
and that's another paradox. It's kind of like last week we were talking, or last podcast we were talking about how, you know, to blow some of my listeners' minds, like fear in and of itself isn't like necessarily totally bad. It's a flag that something's incorrect, and then love takes over to resolve,
Right.
you know? But feeding fear and operating from fear, that is bad, you know?
Yeah.
So, anyways, it's that paradox of like understanding that things can be bad, but we can have hope and move forward.
hmm
So,
Yeah, I agree. So the next point I want to bring up is about Solomonic magic and Grim Trad magic,
the Goetia.
the Goetia and things like that. This is where there's a big catalog of demons in the Ars Goetia, as well as a bunch of magical techniques for how to bind and constrain and
Manipulate.
I mean, for lack of a better term, like, yeah, manipulate these demons into running a task or doing something for you, or as a preemptive measure. So this is not done this is not done in like a happy-go-lucky relationship with the demons at all. This is done very much from claiming your power and authority, having lots of preparations. A lot of the times these magicians go through rigorous self-work and journeys for years in order to basically unite with their holy guardian angel, or what people call the higher self, so that this protective spirit takes over during these rituals. It's literally calling down the power of God and, for lack of a better term, threatening these entities to do various things, either a task, and a lot of the times it's a preemptive measure. For instance, you may call forth the spirit, or the demon rather, of some sort of sickness, right? Sickness, pestilence, plague, whatever. A magician may conjure that demon and make a bargain with it, or threaten it, that it's not allowed to touch the magician, it's not allowed to touch the family, it's not allowed to touch anyone in contact with the magician or the house. And this is essentially a ritual that's used as a preemptive measure to ward against the spirit, or the demon of sickness, a sickness spirit, essentially, a maleficent spirit. So you could, there are things like that that's done, but that's not. A lot of these Solomonic practitioners are Abrahamic in faith.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not, they're essentially Christian magicians. They're coming from a point of like exorcism, and preemptive magic and calling down the power of God to ward against the demons and like basically like kind of trying to get ahead of the game. That's like the theory, you know what I mean? And like, but they're not working with them like, oh, I've got a demon as a spirit guide.
And even in that moment, like, you're exercising your authority and dominion.
Exactly.
But there's ways that people, like you said a minute ago, make bargains, and that's literally a deal with the devil. And like you want to avoid stuff like that at all cost, honestly. I've totally lost my train of thought. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, it's okay.
ADD
I'll
moment.
say that bargain does have like a negative connotation. Essentially, it's a deal, and I know that also has a negative connotation, but it's literally quid pro quo. It's essentially do not touch me or my family, and I will give you this offering. So I mean, it's not cool.
It's not cool. No one's saying do it.
Not from
We're just saying like the best possible ever scenario you can get with working with the demon would be that.
Yeah, and so anyway, I've just never, I mean, and again, if anyone out there listening is a Solomonic practitioner or Grim Trad and they want to call me up and ream me a new one because I'm getting it all wrong, please do. I'm totally fine with that, and I will issue a correction. But from what I've learned and researched and studied, and I have talked to Grim Trad magicians, and one guy I follow on TikTok, I get on his lives all the time. He has a Solomonic practitioner on there as well, and I listen to them talk back and forth. This is what I've ascertained of their practices. But again, I don't know everything because I'm not a Solomonic magician. So that being said, I'll go into, you know, why somebody would be drawn to working with a demon, other than just trying to be an edgelord.
Before you do that, I was going to say another, you know, a way that I think is healthy and more beneficial and, for lack of a better word, correct to interacting with demons is to not entertain them at all unless you have to. And what I mean by that is if you are, for instance, like if somebody is being afflicted by one, then you exercise your authority and power over it to remove it and to banish it and to exercise it and get rid of it, okay? End of the day, we have authority, dominion, and power. They do not. They have to go.
Yeah.
So that would be the only way that I, Chosen, would ever recommend working with demons. And I'm not being rude. Like I have sympathy and compassion for what you're about to go into. Like the reasons people like want to, you know, like people... Maybe they are dying and have no hope and they want to make a deal, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just making stuff up off the cuff, but like I have sympathy. I understand that, but I've also seen the other side and I've seen the higher realms.
Yeah.
I've seen the miracles and healing, and I think there's much more, I think there's a better avenue.
There are, and I've got another one. So thanks for stopping me because I want to share this experience right quick.
Okay.
The closest, and maybe you have one, the closest encounter that I've had with a demon that wasn't like a personal situation was the other day, and I've had encounters with demons in the past but didn't understand them to be such because I wasn't open spiritually. I didn't have my spiritual senses developed, but now looking back with spiritual eyes, I can see, okay, I was under demonic attack. Right? Mm-hmm. But this just happened recently when I'm, you know, developed magician now. I understand things. I can see in the spirit and whatever. There was someone close to me that was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And so I had been doing healing on her for the better part of a week. And so I brought up her astral body during one session in my temple. And I was going to do some, like, almost like astral laying of the hands, you know, energetic healing or whatever. So I brought her up and immediately just kind of assessed. And it was like, the thing is that I know that this is real because I don't know how to explain it, but I did not expect to see this, if that makes sense. You weren't
conjuring the image.
Exactly. So I brought her body up, I looked at her, and it was almost like I kind of looked down to check, like, my watch almost. Like, it's like my vision was kind of like, it like shifted.
Yeah.
Like, it's like I almost looked away, and when I looked back, I saw what I could only describe as a demon standing over her body and sucking the life out of her.
Yeah.
Okay? And I immediately like in this image, you'll see me. I'm probably turning red right now. I have goosebumps on me because it was such a startling image, and I was immediately on defense. And like I'm trying to bring up like my Solomonic people, like what they've told me, and like just kind of like what you've told me, and immediately I get into like a defensive stance, and I just start pointing at it and just rebuking it and just calling down every name of God that I've ever said, invoking my own angel. I actually felt myself step back and my HGA come in, and I started just like not speaking in tongues, but like the rebuking and the prayer and the words started rolling off, you know, and at it. And as this was happening, it was like almost like being hit, and I was like blasting it with light, and it finally fled her body. Now I'm not saying this cured her of cancer, okay, but it fled her, and then I put up 3 like
rings of protection
around us, and I didn't. So the thing is that this is how I know this is a real experience, because I was not prepared for this at all, and my HGA stepped in, and I just am like seeing myself do this, and like the memory of the energy is so high. Like, feel my fucking face.
No,
right
I can
now.
see you're red.
Yeah, I'm red because I'm recalling how much energy was flooding through my body. That's how I know it was a real situation. But anyway, regardless, things calmed down. Once the rings went up, my HGA stepped back a little bit, and I was able to resume doing the hands-on, and the entity never returned. But I'm just saying that you know, to me, that's what a demon is.
Oh, I have so many stories.
Yeah, that's like the sickness. Yeah. That's the spirit.
And
I'll just
let you know also, discernment wise, like you can, and maybe people even listening. There's going to be people out there listening. Actually, I'm just going to declare this. There's people listening out there that are going to recognize the seriousness and energy when she was telling that story, and you're going to recognize it as true. That's going to ring true to you because you can. It almost like. It's almost a sobering energy. Oh, the cats are having a good time with the door. So we're gonna handle the cat real quick, you guys. All right. So there's a sobering energy that, like a clarity and like a seriousness that comes over you when you hear stories like that, and that's how you know. That's a sign that it's. I'm not going to say every time because I'm sure people can be convincing emotionally, but that's a discernment sign that someone's speaking the truth about a situation, you know? I mean, I ran a small group in my home for years. We used to call it Hogwarts for Christians. And we weren't even teaching like witchcraft at that point. We were just teaching operating the supernatural then. And like we always were doing healings there. And like one of the spirits in the kingdom of darkness is called the spirit of the python. Okay. It's also why I don't like snakes. But I know snakes are beautiful, and like actual normal snakes are not evil in and of themselves, you guys. I'm just letting you know. I get it. I have a weird thing with like snakes and crocodiles. Like I couldn't even touch the science book in like 6th grade. It was like weird. Yeah, probably something. Anyways, not the point. Okay, moving forward though, there's a spirit of python. So something that's coming up to me, or a memory that's resurfacing for me as we're talking about this, is I would call it psychic surgery now. I would just call it doing healing then. Psychic surgery is healing, but I would open my vision and see, like, for instance, in the past, I've seen arrows in people's back, and I would remove them, and you would see them like as if I actually, like in the physical, you would react if I pulled that arrow out, as if I actually pulled it out, okay? Yeah. There was the spirit of the python wraps around the base of your pelvis and your spine, and wraps around your spine and tries to crush your life force. And I mean, that's just one of the things it does, and it attacks your life and destroys it. And there's a spirit of python on one of my really good friends who has also kind of deconstructed and evolved with me, and matter of fact, stood by me in some hard times because she experienced this stuff with me. But we reached in and grabbed it, and it bit her over. She was like it was as if it was like really it was physically pulling it out of her. God. And and I had other people there that were praying against it, and there was tongues being prayed, and we had to remove that. And I literally in the astral realm pulled it out, and like not to be gruesome, but like destroyed it
Mm,
basically.
mm.
Um, and banished it and went in and released healing in those areas and protected her from that. I covered her with a hedge of protection and a ring of blood and fire is what we like to say.
Yeah.
Um, so so yeah, I have experience with the demonic. It's very common. Matter of fact, I've seen it in huge group settings as well. People being thrown across the room, people levitating and shaking uncontrollably, people's bodies being overtaken and then moving in again in snake imagery,
Mm.
like their bodies are contorting in ways they're not it's not possible. Like these people are paralyzed and
Oh
stuff.
my
They're not
God.
supposed to be moving like this.
Yeah.
And like I know how to deal with them because I've been trained to do it. We don't entertain it. It's a quick stop.
Yeah.
What is your name? Depart and never return. That is it. It's very, very, you don't feed it, you know?
Yeah.
Because the whole goal of
The
demons.
emotion, it wants the emotion.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the whole goal of the demonic when they're manifesting like that in the presence is that they know the jig is up,
Right.
right? Their goal is to embarrass the person and to cause a scene because if there can be fear to feed it, it gains power from it.
Mm.
And it feeds off of that and it wants that to happen because it also gets you to question your authority and belief in it, okay?
Yeah.
That's why we do not entertain incorrect, harmful energies. That's what I've meant the entire time. I've always said that.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. So yeah, you're right. I do have stories. It's funny because like I take that to heart. I really don't think about that a lot. I guess I really don't entertain it, but it's just wild looking back. And I had no idea that happened to you recently.
I didn't tell you that?
No, I was just like in shock when I was listening to that. I
Are
was
you
like, what?
serious? I
Yes.
could have swore I told
It's like,
you.
what?
So it's
Um,
I don't know if it's the Aquarius moon, but when genuinely like scary or impactful things happen to me, I'm like tight-lipped about it. Don't tell anyone. Have no idea why. But like one petty thing happens, I'm talking to fucking everybody about it. I have no idea why that is. But like
That's
when
how it works.
like genuinely traumatic, life-changing stuff
Mhm.
happens, like yeah.
Yeah, and so that's why I'm such a like a that's why I'm like, listen, like I'm not just saying this because I have an opinion. I'm saying this because I have experience.
Yeah.
I'm not being rude. I'm not talking down to you. I'm saying don't even like you don't need to experience that. You can yield to the wisdom of those who have come before you, and you could go much farther than I've ever gone. But by all means, let me save you the mess. Let me save you the heartache in ways that I can. I do understand there's people who are called to walk in that and do that full time. And there are people who we can't rob their lessons they're meant to learn. We can't do the work for them. But there's some things that we can absolutely assist you and aid you in. For
Yeah.
instance, the course I teach, I'm saving you time and energy and probably years, honestly, of emotional torment. But I'm not robbing you of the lesson. So, anyways,
Yeah, I just like to correct I just like to correct harmful information that's
yeah,
out there,
if it's
you
gonna harm
know?
you, I want to correct you,
Because I think that it's absolutely bizarre to me that there's this notion again that there's no such thing as
Oh, and it's
a
in the Christian witch
malevolent.
community too.
I know.
It's
And,
insane.
and it's bizarre to me because there are bad and malefic spirits out there.
And
Like
it's really,
there are.
it's really like,
Call them demons, call them bad spirits, call them evil. I don't care, but they exist.
it's crushing my excitement I got when I found a little bit of community online.
Yeah.
Because the only people that are like offering to teach that I've found so far, like they're teaching some of this incorrect, harmful energy. I'm not going to call them out because I'm not. And by the way, I'm sure there's people listening that you think I'm talking about you. I'm not. But there are some out there that it's just like, oh, like I hope that they like snap soon rather than later, sooner rather than later. But yeah. Anyways, so knowledge speaks, wisdom listens. Anyways, we were talking about the examples, and then we were gonna move into something after that. I forgot what it was though.
Oh yeah. Oh, what I was gonna say is the other thing I hear a lot about why someone would want to work with a demon, right? I see this in the occult community a lot. There's this notion, I don't know how true it is, but there's this notion or theory that demons are, a part of the infernal realm, right? And so they're closer to Earth than, say, like an angel would be,
Mm-hmm.
and or like a spirit from the upper world or something like that would be, right? And so because of that, because they are closer to us, and this is all metaphorical, right? They can thus like enact better, more substantial, quicker
Outcomes.
outcomes and
Okay, yeah.
change. And so here's the thing. While that may be true, the Fae folk are close to us also.
Yeah.
So I'm
Not to
not
mention
this
the angels that are in our realm.
right, and the nature spirits and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a whole middle world of entities and like nature spirits and the Fae folk, and some people say the Fae folk are, you know, in the lower world, but what have you, they are closer to us, you know,
Than the highest
metaphorically,
realm, so to speak.
right, than the higher realms, right? So you could work with the Fae. Now, do extensive research, because
Oh,
any
yeah.
entity that you're going to be working with that is closer to Earth, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
is going to be like a human being, you know? So vet them out. Form relationships, ask them questions, make sure you know what you're doing, because we wouldn't just walk up to random strangers on the street and start
Mm-hmm.
asking them favors,
It's
right?
called test the spirits, as the
Yes,
scripture says.
exactly. So there's that. And but yeah, so always do your research on that. It would be a whole nother podcast episode. Again, I opted not to work with the Fae because it just seemed overly complicated.
Yeah.
So this is what I do. I work with my ancestors. That's the other route that you can go. But just going to throw that out there in case it resonates with anyone. If it doesn't resonate with you, that's fine, but that's just my personal experience. But there are other, you know, ways to do that other than calling on a demon.
Yeah, that should be nowhere on the list of options, honestly.
Yeah.
Uh,
So,
and let me tell you why as well. So, all of these realms do exist, correct? There are spirits here that are meant to help us. That some of the hosts of heaven are here to literally help us and manifest things for us. And but we, as and I'm speaking to the people who follow me specifically because they are believers in Christ and they believe we have access to the kingdom and everything like that. And I believe this is available for everyone. We are seated in heaven, so we have to remember that in the occult philosophies, a lot of them, they're not going all the way up the top of through the realms of existence. They're stopping at what we call like the divine mind, so to speak. And there's a whole nother level where like the creator sits and where
right.
we're seated in heaven, so to speak, with them, right? So I mean, I don't know how to say this I'm not saying this to sound contrived or condescending, but why work with a demon if you're seated in heaven and you literally are working with the creator spirit who is not bound by the preternatural laws,
Right.
you know? Like you can literally open the realms, like spread the veils and manifest whatever you need. Like if God wanted to, he could rip open the fabric of time and space right now and pop a tray of brownies out for us. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm being silly here, but like I think we need to exercise our own power before we need to depend on the power of other spirits. I don't think we ever should depend upon the power of other spirits. I think anytime we, for instance, from coming from a Christian background, we call it commissioning angels because we're giving them a co-mission as
Yeah.
part of our delegated authority. So we're never really like depending upon other spirits, you know?
Yeah. I'm really glad you said that. I prefer to work with angelic forces and also with planetary forces and elemental forces rather than commissioning a specific spirit. But yeah, if spirit work doesn't resonate with you, you don't need it. There's a
Correct.
lot of other ways to do magic. I was just giving examples of if you are drawn to working with spirits in some capacity and you come across something that says, well, if you want this done, you gotta commission a demon. It's like, no, you don't.
Correct. And I mean, and then here's the other aspect is it's like, we're not just magicians here that are listening to the podcast. Some people are psychic mediums, and so they will encounter these spirits whether they
Right.
want to work with them or not, you know?
Yeah.
And if you're actually doing the internal work, you're developing that mediumship. So it's
Yeah.
important you do say those things. So by all means, say those things.
Yeah.
But I'm the same. I'd rather work with the facets of the creator's power that he's literally given us to work with. So yeah, I feel the same.
Here's the last thing. I think it's the last thing. The last thing that I can remember that I hear all the time is that demons, and for that matter, all other spirits, are essentially archetypes. And so that's the reasoning why they say that demons aren't actually evil, right? Because they think that it's demonizing the shadow self, because they believe that demons are projections of the shadow self. If that were true, sorry, it's the cats. Okay, if that were true, then yeah, we don't want to demonize the shadow self, right? That's not what we're trying to do. However, I don't believe, just in my personal experience, I don't believe that demons are projections of the shadow self.
Correct.
That's because I don't follow a psychological model of magic and cosmology, though. So,
Well, and then also in the more recent centuries, you've had like even in the church, they say everything is a spirit of this. Like, so if you have a spirit of bitterness or rebellion on you, like I'm sure there's actual demons that exist by that, but they're probably just saying, "Oh, you're being a little bratty today.
right.
You're being a little bitter right now."
Mm.
But I'm sure there's actual spirits who are out there to incite that in you and feed off of it.
Yeah, and then there's egregores.
So that's how things
and
get misconstrued as like,
yeah.
oh, when they say spirits, they mean psychological things or behavioral things. Another thing is that demons are not demonized pagan gods.
Oh yeah, that's another one.
It's not Christianity showed up and therefore everything else was a demon immediately, right? I've heard that recently and I was just like, oh my God. No. Like I've heard that in the past, but like I heard it from someone that really should not be teaching this. And yeah, anyways, just moving on.
Yeah, that's not true either. I haven't done extensive research into this, but there's like one demon in the Ars Goetia that could possibly have been a Babylonian. I'm pretty sure it's Astra. I'm pretty sure, and it's pretty close. There's a lot of similarities, and they're pretty sure, like, dude, that goddess got demonized, right? But they try to draw, like, other similarities and other comparisons, like, this is one, and it's not true.
Yeah.
It's not close. So the assumption has been, since it happened once, all of them then must be.
Which
and
we all know isn't true. I mean, we look at, like, for instance, like something I said earlier in our lunch conversation was, that's like looking at somebody who realizes that they weren't homosexual, they were just afraid, or maybe they were abused of somehow, and then they get healing, and then they wake up and they're like, oh, like I'm actually not homosexual,
Right.
That's like saying that one person is the case for everyone.
Right.
And that's just not
It's not
correct.
true.
And that's not me just saying that. That is theologians who are anti-gay even admit that. There are master psychotherapists, master psychologists, master theologians, people who are all three of those things and hold multiple degrees in those things that can break that down further for you. Dr. Timothy Jennings is one, the God-shaped heart, the God-shaped brain. We can't apply that to every circumstance because it was true one time. And that's why I always say, like, the craft can be science because we can repeatedly get similar results if we test and do things a certain way. We have to test things,
Yeah.
But another thing I was thinking about is then you have demons that they want to turn into gods, like Lilith. And she has never been a god, never been a goddess. As a Christian witch, as a Christian, as a pastor and a trained and certified minister, I can tell you, just so y'all know, I went to seminary as well. I did not finish because Holy Spirit said that was not my path, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna save this coin. But I did the research, I did the work. Okay, Lilith never. Absolutely was not the first wife of Adam. That is nonsense that's been made up.
Oh, that's just like a folk tale, isn't
It's a folk tale, but people think it's legitimate because of the internet. And the only text, the only mentions we've ever had of Lilith throughout antiquity and historically and anthropologically and all those things, she's only ever been a demon wandering in the desert. And I believe you said earlier, like, and it sounds familiar, but I can't say for certain because I don't remember because I don't focus on demons.
Stole children.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So anyways, just so you guys know, Lilith not a thing, and where people are I have a feeling that people are also getting this twisted as well because in astrology in your chart there's something called your Lilith, and that's like the darker sides of
Yeah.
things, and they're always like embrace those things, like heal those things, and
Mm,
people think that it's saying that Lilith is a representation of that, and therefore we should worship Lilith as a
yeah.
goddess, and that she was never really a demon. She was just demonized, and that's just not true. That's just not true. They're separate
Yeah.
things, you know. Just because, for instance, if you know me, my birth name is spelled very specifically. Okay, it is
Mm-hmm.
not common. In college, in my local, I did a semester at a local community college. It's top 10 in the nation. It was wonderful. But there was a girl with my same exact name, and she lived down the street from me, and I'd never met her a day in my life. Okay, but just because we had the same name doesn't mean we're the same person when that lady called us up to the desk. See what I'm saying? So, just because things share a name and similar qualities don't mean that they're the same, okay? Um, so yeah.
The last thing I'll say, and I always mispronounce this word, but I know what it looks like. And I
What is
saw
it?
it's this word, and I saw this the other day. I said,
Chthonic?
yeah, and it's pronounced. I always said chthonic, and
Is it thonic?
I think it's just pronounced thonic.
It's probably what about like chutzpah and
I don't know.
is it with a ch in front of it? It's like a
Yeah, I think it is. I
okay.
think the word, I believe it's pronounced thonic though. Okay, so what I was going to say is that it seems that there is this, rightfully so, this energy in the collective to embrace the shadow self, to embrace what this is, the chthonic energies, to
Hmm.
embrace the underworld energies, to embrace the instinctual, animalistic, more dark side of the moon, so to speak, the new moon energies, that new moon, dark moon current that wells up within us each month. That's been so neglected, especially lately with the New Age movement and everything like that. That is a totally different set of energy than infernal energy.
Hmm.
And those two things are being conflated. And
Hmm.
I know you hate that word, but that is what's happening.
It's
Is
true.
there people don't know the difference between infernal energies and thoughtic energies, and it's like everything dark must go into this one lump sum category.
Hmm.
And that's a disservice to people on either side of the coin, because you have people who say, oh, all of those energies are the same, thus I'm staying the hell away from them,
Yeah.
right? That's a disservice to your shadow side, to the
Correct.
side of yourself that needs healing, that needs integration, that those dark spots within you that need to be
It's the
brought to
healing,
healing.
yeah. And that's another thing is
Right.
people think that embracing the shadow means just embracing being a hateful person
Yeah,
or
and
being
that's
quote unquote bad. And that's
no.
it's not an excuse to be a bratty teenager. But yeah, and by the way, just so we're clear, shadow work can be very dangerous if you've been through extensive trauma. We are not saying to do this lightly. Always consult your therapist or
Right, and that's what I was going to say
spiritual
next.
mentor, because shadow work, the idea of it can look like therapy, but in and of itself, maybe isn't for everyone because maybe it's not the healthiest to relive things you've been
It can
through.
be very
There are
intense.
other forms of psychology and spiritual healing that can help you with that, where you don't have to face those things again. But for the most part, like you were saying, shadow work, we need to embrace the parts of us that we would like to keep hidden in the shadows.
Yeah, I call it like understanding our, our defects, the things that,
Yeah.
and I know it's a harsh word, but it's the things within us that are unsellable goods. They aren't winning us essentially any points in life. Meanness, rudeness, smugness, arrogance, selfishness, all of these things, right?
And it's
So it's
also healing the false perceptions of those things. Like sometimes we're not mean and we just think we're mean,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, and it's the insecurities and the
Hmm.
false. It's literally limiting false beliefs, right? So that's not what we're talking about. Demons aren't anywhere in that area, and they fall underneath the infernal energies of this world. That it's up to whoever you ask why they exist and who created them and what. That's not what this podcast is about. But what I'm trying to say is there's a distinction between these two energies, and the reason that I don't like the psychological model is because I feel that more often than not, everything gets conflated, right? Well, if
Hmm.
the shadow is psychological and all of these spirits are psychological, then that means everything is a psychological construct of my mind.
Yep.
And so I feel that that can really reduce things down. And now these energies don't carry the weight that they probably
Well, it's
should
also just
with
not
the
true.
individual.
Like,
I don't personally think that's true. I respect the psychological worldview
we
because
can
I did
respect
share it.
something, we
Yeah.
can honor someone's, like, we can understand why someone might believe it, but the fact of the matter is we have experiential knowledge to say that it is more than just a psychological thought form in your mind.
Yeah.
We can firmly say.
Yeah, and so that's a good point because the reason why I think this is because, um, when we talk about embracing the shadow and things like that, if we apply that to the demonic, say someone is being plagued by some sort of demon or whatever, demon of fear, demon of whatever, right?
Mhm.
If we view that as a psychological aspect of ourselves that needs like love and kindness, it needs to be embraced.
Not
Like
gonna work.
that's probably not going to work on a demon.
Yeah.
And it actually may impact your mental health severely. I'm talking about severely. Like it can cause
for
any
sure.
manner of mental illness. And if you're already prone to mental illness, like me, that is going to exasperate issues substantially. So
Yeah.
that's why I personally believe that you should find a sympathetic therapist or counselor or somebody, if you can, somebody to talk to. Because, and this may offend people, but there are many, many comments and people that I see on the social media platforms, especially like Facebook groups and stuff, reaching out, asking questions, which is all great. But a lot of the times it's, honey, you don't need magic, you need therapy. I need you to get, and I'm not going to prescribe, I don't prescribe
Yeah.
it, right? And I don't say this, but it's very clear that, okay, that's so magic, that's not how, that's not, like, we can do
Yeah.
both, but you need to go talk to someone first. And I
Yeah,
have to tell my
absolutely.
clients that too a lot of the times because this realm does attract people who are lost and who are, sorry about that outside, but
Yeah.
who are lost and who are looking for answers and who are confused. But it's also understanding the limits of what the occult can deal with.
Yeah, and on the flip side as well, I mean, it's not really the flip side, but in that same vein, is like I've seen people who have thought it was all psychological and go to every extent to get healing, do the work, try medication, nothing works, come and get deliverance in 20 minutes and be set free for the rest of their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like at some point, like you have to understand there's different things that play in that they go hand in hand, and you should use, try everything. So and here's the deal is like I do this work with, I do paranormal consultations, I do cleansing and clearings, I do consultations for people who are experiencing things that are they're not very healing. And I don't like to talk about them outside of those sessions, but this stuff's very real, you guys. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast talking about, where there's science and like we're talking about in the car, occult,
Oh yeah.
the occult, and then religion,
Mm-hmm.
and how all these things kind of entertain their own level, so to speak, up the reality chain.
Yeah.
And how you have all these things to explain a various number of phenomena that we experience.
Yeah.
So they're not, this kind of goes back to last week's episode, bringing it full circle now.
Mm-hmm.
How, the last thing I'll say is just because I know we're wrapping it up here, is that, science, occultism, and religion can all exist happily together because they
Yeah.
each explain a different paradigm, a different, literally a different level of
Absolutely.
reality.
Absolutely. And then there's exactly. They all explain different things. And we can only explain so much when it comes to the supernatural to a certain extent, but we can absolutely try.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't feel the need to do it either.
Yeah.
So anyways, so yeah, that wraps our episode. That was going to be short and sweet at 54 minutes.
Oh.
I've had a wonderful time talking about this. I think this
Well,
is
I
really
had a
good.
lot to say. I mean,
No,
I'm heated about this topic.
Well, we haven't really
so-
spent time talking about it outside of this, and I think it was very interesting that, I don't know, like I found myself very intrigued by the things you were saying. So good stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, I mean, because they line up with what I was saying too. So, so it was like, oh, cool. Like I love that because this is just something like we don't entertain the demonic on a regular basis. So like
Yeah.
we're not sitting around talking about it, but from someone who's worked with people who are non-Christian mentors and authentic healers and stuff out there, I will say this: when it comes to the demonic, they all resort to the name of Jesus, and they'll tell you in their trainings too, because it works. So,
Oh, I
um,
definitely called out the name of Jesus when I was
oh,
healed.
a
Oh,
hundred percent.
absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyways, okay, guys, we love you so much. We absolutely would love to hear from you. Reach out to us if you want to schedule an appointment with either of us. Go to our websites. Mine is christianwitchhtx.com. I do readings internationally, healings, all kinds of services. Lux does as well. Her website is, I always get it wrong.
LuxIntuitiveTherapy.com.
Okay, that's it. Okay, luxintuitivetherapy.com. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, we'll see you soon, and we hope that you had a fabulous time listening to us ramble about the demonic.
All right.
Yeah, I know
Bye.
you're waiting for it. So. Okay, bye.
Bye, guys.